talk a little bit about last week. Made our typical opening game mistakes. Very disappointed in how we played on special teams. We had great effort, but sometimes the effort was over the top. We wasn't as mentally into it as we were effort-wise in special teams. I think we had 3 or 4 penalties on special teams out of punt block, which is inexcusable. We just had a couple mental lapses, and that'll be an obvious point of practice this week. Every day this week, we'll make some changes. We'll do some different things on the punt team to give ourselves a little bit better chance. But last year we had a lot of pressure from Temple with our punt team, and had some mistakes. So just going back into the game that we played last week. First of all, I want to thank the students for coming out. That was awesome. I thought that was an awesome night. The fans that came back after the lightning storm, but it's. We got something done. We didn't play our starters, but about a quarter and a half. Some things we found out that we needed to work on, which is what you do in the first game. And we had some guys step up. We had some young guys play very well. Some of the young freshmen played very well. We'll cut our roster down a little bit more this week in terms of the guys that will play, because now we're getting into really the meat of our schedule very early against Temple. We've got to be ready to go. They played a very tough, hard-fought game, and we're the better team last week against Penn State by a couple of touchdowns. And we probably still don't know where we're at with the type of team that we played, and that's what you get into when you play a team. The caliber we played first game of the year, there's some good and there's some bad. Same thing if you play a team that's very good the first game, there's good and bad. So we'll find out more about our team this week. There's some areas that we've got to get better. One place is we're fairly healthy, so most everybody will be back, ready to go, 100%. We're awfully sore, as every team is this week. After a couple of days of sitting around after you got hit pretty good for a while, you're going to be sore, and this is the week you work your soreness out, but we have got to get ready to go. Temple, very good team. Last year we played each other what was around 10th or 11th game of the season in Philadelphia, and neither team really played that well. It was just one of those that we ended up making a couple more plays than they did and won the game. But I would venture to say that their coaching staff would say that wasn't one of the better games that they played, nor was it one of the better games we played. We made a lot of bad decisions on both sides of the ball and kicking game. So that being said, we've got to get ready to go, because they'll be one of the better teams that we play. They've got a lot of experience. This is a team that they've been working on for the last few years. They've got very, very experienced defense, some guys that can really play, give you problems. They gave us problems last year, and it won't be any different. Very mobile quarterback that can make a bad play into a big play. And so we've got to just keep working on what we're doing, trying to get better. We have home field advantage, which I don't know how much that makes a difference, but early in the season it probably makes more than it does later in the season. So just looking forward to getting back and seeing how much we can improve. Our quarterbacks have to get better, making decisions. We made some bad decisions last week. I thought our running backs ran hard. Our offensive line played a little bit better than I thought we would. Defensively, we just worked on depth. We tried to find the guys that could play, that we could feel like we put out there for 2 or 3 or 4 plays in a row. Try to make plays, and as much athletic ability on the field as athletic talent on the field as we could get. And probably went a little bit too far in some areas, but we did find out about some guys, and really how far along they are technique-wise. So this will be another learning week, even though it's a conference game. We've got to play much better. We can't make it near as many mistakes, and I'm sure their coaches are telling them the same thing there. It'll be a fun night. Should be having a full house here in our stadium, and again, it was a great lift to see all those students out last week, and excited. Hopefully, I know we've sold out of student tickets this week, so it should be another one of those games where we had a lot of noise and enthusiasm getting ready to start the conference play. Questions?
Special teams issues, was that something that you anticipated based on practice?
Yeah, well, we're trying to play a lot of guys. We're trying to not play as many starters on special teams early in the season. What happens, so you play linebackers, all your starting linebackers on a couple of teams, and by the end of end of the game, third or fourth quarter, then you're running out of gas because it is still humid out there. Even though it's not, might not be as hot, it is still very humid. And once you start losing your fluids and you start cramping, which we had 3 or 4 guys that cramped last week, then they can't play near as well as they could if they weren't cramping. So we're trying to, as we, our philosophy going into this season, we know we have more athletes, we're trying to play more athletes. We're going to spread ourselves thin in some areas, knowing that there's probably some better guys we could put on a couple of special teams here and there, but we got to bring these guys along. We can't wait around. We can't play, 30, 40 guys in a football game. We got to get 50 to 60 where we keep them healthy all year long, fresh all the way through 4 quarters. We got the ability and we've got the guys now. We just don't have the experience. And the only way you get experience is to go out there. And that lack of experience showed in several areas of blocking in the back, turning a guy loose on punt protection, offsides on being too enthusiastic on the opening kickoff. Just little things like that just can be the difference in the game. And those young guys have to understand that. This is not, they come from high school ball to a level where one mistake can cost you a game. And because there's everybody's so much paired together in talent, you got to be a mentally prepared player as well as physically play. And I think a lot of the guys understood that after we watched the special teams film together as a group. I think they got the message pretty quick about how you've got to play with your brain and not just your legs. You've got to put both of them together and play smart.
So are you going to put some of those veteran guys back on special teams, or just take your
We
lumps?
will, some we won't, because they can do it. It's just, and it wasn't anything that they had not seen. I think it was a little bit of stage fright. I mean, of getting out there and panicking. Hadn't been on the field before in that situation. So the only way you can do it is get out there, put them out there, and get them going. And if you don't get them out there, then what's going to happen is we're going to end up playing a small amount of people in a long season. And if we do that, it's going to cost us down the road, maybe injuries, guys being out there too many plays, and all those things.
What happened on the punt block?
We just had one guy just absolutely turned his guy loose, blocked the wrong guy. And that we've done that in practice, we've corrected it, and it just goes to show you, when you're dealing with young guys out there, they get out there and they're anxious to go. Sometimes they forget what's going on. And so, but that's as much coaching as playing. We just got to get in their head, hey, you got to think. You can't think about what's going on other than that play. And sometimes they don't look, they look forward instead of looking at the present.
Was it the same guy in practice?
No, it was another guy.
What is the situation with Clemente Cassius, and will he play this week?
Yeah, he broke team rules, and so I suspended him. I hadn't made my mind up yet on that. So he's out for a while.
This game obviously is a conference game, which is first and foremost what's most important. But with Temple's victory over Penn State and them being national team of the week, there'll be a lot of eyes on them this weekend. Is it also an opportunity to maybe get a lot of eyes on your team if you play well against them?
Yeah, it's obvious they're the darling team of the country now. They should be. They haven't beat Penn State in 40 years, something like that, and that's huge. I tell you, they do a great job of coaching, and they had a very good football team last year. They just lost a handful of games by a small number of points, and so they've been shooting for this time. They've got experience, they've got depth on defense, and it starts with their defense. Now, their offense is good. They're explosive. They can make plays. But we all know, their linebackers are good. They're very aggressive up front. Their defense, they're sound. They usually don't give up big plays. Again, we caused a turnover last year, around the 4 or 5 yard line. It actually was a winning touchdown. It kind of got us over the hump. That we forced a turnover. And defensively, we didn't play that well, but neither did they. As I go back and tell you, we fumbled the kickoff return, put it on the ground. We snapped the ball back on the punt, and hit one of the upbacks and goes on the ground. Our punter had to pick it up and basically pooch kick left head high. And we just made all kinds of mistakes, but I attribute a little bit of that to the weather. It was cold. Cold up there late in the year. Guys were a little beat up, and you're not quite as into it as you are that late in the year. So hopefully both teams will play better this year than we played last year.
You mentioned the offensive line that it played better than you thought it was going to. In what ways?
More consistent. You know, we blocked the right guy most of the time. You know, we might have physically got beat in some areas, but mentally I thought it was a good game for the offensive line. We ran the ball more. We're going to continue to run the ball more. We're going to try to be more physical at the point of attack. You know, our guards are young. Everybody else is fairly mature, experienced, but an offensive line is about 5 guys, not about 4, not about 3. It's about all 5 of them playing together. And it was good for those guys to go out and have some success. We saw a lot of blitz. We did a good job against the blitz. We didn't make the right decision every time, maybe from the quarterback or receivers or somebody else. And again, offense is about 11 guys, but really pleased with the offensive line. Most in our technique might not have been perfect. I mean, we've got a lot of room for improvement with technique. And we played, 12 guys on the offensive line, which is good. We've got to continue to bring guys along. Corey Cunningham, for instance, you know, our left tackle, we got to bring him along. Backup center, we played him, 40 plays, which was a good game to get guys in that hadn't played a whole lot, because we're going to have to play with some of those guys down the line, either as a starter or a guy coming in for a game that somebody might get a little banged up. So that was a good game, especially for the offensive line to get a lot of reps out of some of the guys that hadn't played much. You know, I'm talking about 20, 30 reps.
All the time that Mike Boone got last year with the injuries, are you seeing that now with him, that how much that experience has helped him?
Well, Mike's so much farther along. He's a lot more explosive too. He understands more. We're doing some things this year, offensively with the backs. It's a little different from last year, protection-wise. A few different running plays, throwing the ball to them a little bit different. We have more screen passes, but it's going to be by committee, as you can tell. You know, all 3 of those guys did well. Tion had his best game. He ran hard. We'd seen that all camp. That wasn't a surprise to us of how hard he ran. He's bigger, he's faster, he's stronger. Jose being the senior, that's where he got the start. But all those guys pretty much get the same amount of reps. But Mike is a guy that he'll get better and better as he goes. And you know, fumbling the ball the other night kind of brought him down to another level. That was a kind of a perfect hit. You never forgive a fumble, but you know, he got hit on the arm at the right spot. That ball came out of there, and just fortunate he didn't have an injury to that point. But we're at a position right now in that game. You look out there, and I don't want any of those guys out there running the ball, but we don't have enough run back. They're all hurt, and so those guys right now, we're only really 3 that we're going to play. No, we have Josh Holloman, we got Taylor Boose, who is a redshirt guy, and I'm not going to take a redshirt off him to play 2 or 3 plays. Banchbach will be back probably next week. He had surgery 3 weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago this Thursday, so he's getting close to coming back. Yesterday he was in practice, catching balls, running, but they're not going to release him yet to have contact. But he'll give us that extra guy back there that we're going to need as we go down. And he's a guy that can play, you know, even when the game's still on the line or need to do whatever, because he knows the offense, and I've got a lot of confidence in what he can do.
The carries were pretty evenly divided among those 3. Is that something you're hoping to keep doing going forward?
Yeah, unless we get a hot guy in a game, we're not going to take him out. You know, if we get somebody in there that's doing a good job, you know, seeing the defense, making plays, making people miss. It's always good though to have a fresh set of legs, but it's also good to have somebody that's gets on a roll. And Tion kind of got on that the other night. You know, he started feeding off his success and running even harder than he did early in the game.
How much of a concern is their pass rush after what they did against Penn State?
Yeah, we made some, not great decisions last year on offense, before the ball was snapped. Some of the things that we did in the game plan probably didn't work as well as we thought it would. And again, they've got a good defense. It's not that, we knew going in we were going to have to really earn everything that we get. But it's more about it. We're going to work more about us and what we do, our offense. Obviously, you got to execute, but and they got to do the same thing. You don't worry about the defense. You just look at what they try to do. Their personnel, their fronts, their coverages, and all that. And you try to take advantage of it. no matter what they do, you try to execute better than them, and that's what we'll do. And I'm sure that's what they'll do. But it was pretty much a defensive battle last year that turned over a bunch of turnovers, and neither special team really played that great. So it'll be a better game this year, and hopefully we can hold up our end of the bargain.
Instead of that usual kind of gradual build up to a conference schedule, you guys are jumping right in week 2. What kind of different challenges does that pose as a coach, getting those guys ready for the real meat of your schedule already?
Yeah, it's a little different, but that's fine. I'd rather have them 1 or 2 earlier in the season. Sometimes you get beat up before you get to conference games too, and so we're in pretty good shape when it comes to that. And this one being at home, last year our schedule was absolutely awful. We don't play for another couple of weeks this time last year, so at least we're off to a start. We can kind of try to get better as the season goes on. Last year we didn't know what to work on until we got to October, and so now we have a little bit of idea of the number of players that will play, guys that will be really out there that we can count on the field and feel decent about them knowing what to do. So going into the first conference game is always tough, and I mean we're picked to win it. There's not a touchdown difference between most of us and our side of the conference. So each week's going to be a true test for each team, and they're running on a high. I mean they're sky high, beating the team that they beat and beating them handedly. I mean it wasn't much of a game in the second half. So it'll be a huge challenge for us.
Coach, there's been guys obviously excited after a win like that. Use the word undefeated. I heard guys say that they have a chance to go undefeated this season, higher ground. And such a week-to-week sport. Are you okay with guys having that kind of thought, having that kind of goal?
Yeah, that's coaches. We've got to talk about that with them. It's almost impossible to win every game. To be honest, it happens only for a couple of teams every year. So are we going to be one of those out of 130? That's what I told our guys. I mean, you can't count on that. The only thing you can count on is going out and play the best you can. And hopefully, at the end of the day, you won the game that you played. You start looking forward to the first half of the season. Other teams, I mean, you're not going to make it. I mean, you just got to go try to play and get better as a person, as a group of guys, and then defense, offense, special teams. I mean, we're not near good enough to win half our games right now. The way we played, we just got to get better. That's the reason you play, and we got to have good senior leadership, and we've got that. And it'll be interesting how we bounce, to this week's game from a game that we pretty much controlled. Wasn't a lot of focus in the game, and that was intentional. We didn't talk much about Alabama A&M, knowing that we should win the game by just going out there. But now it's just totally different. Now all of a sudden it's about every play can make a difference. Everybody's got to be ready to play, focused on it. There can't be a offsides on a kickoff or a block punt. That one play can cost you the game. So totally opposite this week, how we're going to have to prepare and how we prepare for the first game.
Temple beating Penn State, how much does that help the perception of the league?
Oh, I think it really helps. I think it helps it a lot. Penn State's had problems, but I mean, they're still a so-called Power 5 team. There's not a lot of difference between Power 5 and any team in our league. There might be 7 or 8 teams that it might be, but the perception, people seeing a team, and I think the biggest thing was how long it's been since they beat them. I think people look at that. Their fans tell it's something good to talk about. It's a great story. It's a fun story. I've watched games for the last 30 years that Temple's played, and see them on TV, and there's not many people in the stands. You've watched that game, and of course Penn State had a lot of people there, but that's a rival game, and they want to beat a rival team. I don't care how many times they beat them. They beat a rival team, and Matt's done a great job with that program. I mean, he's built it the right way. They don't change a lot. They're very basic in terms of what we do. We're going to try to do right, and their guys play hard. They play really hard. And again, they were real close last year to beat a lot of teams, including us.
You mentioned it when you just watch a Temple game on TV. There aren't many fans in the stands usually. Seems like that'd be a really difficult place to build a winning program. Is it tougher than a lot of other places
Well-
from your outside viewpoint?
It depends on your head coach and your staff and the direction that you want to take it. And it's about recruiting that area. He's got a lot of guys on the team from that area. He's got a couple of guys that are very good players on defense that were walk-ons when they came. And so you've got to do your due diligence of getting people on campus, evaluate them, invite them, do a good job with the high school coaches, as we do, as a lot of teams do in the inner city. You got to do that. You got to get guys to come out that are you might think they'll be good players and develop them and make them a good football team. I mean, we have a hard time beating a lot of schools, on recruits. They do the same thing. So you've got to do your job of going out and working harder than other people and finding guys that other people don't think are college football players. And they've done that. They have done a very good job of evaluating players and building